Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, November 28th, 2014. It's the WNW 168. And what I tell you a week ago, that there would be no charges, the big tip-off, there would be no charges. A lot of people thought that. I predicted it. Not a big prediction, but here we go. No charges. And, of course, there's Michael Brown's stepfather screaming out that he wants to burn things down. He actually said something different, but he's screaming out to burn things down, but no charges filed. None. No charges filed. Of course, there was a rioting in ground zero of all this, in Ferguson, Missouri, and also some violence and some rioting and protesting in other parts of the country. And I think they wanted the violence. I think they wanted that to happen. I mean, the mayor of Ferguson was asking for the National Guard to be deployed on the night that they announced that there would be no charges, and they didn't deploy the National Guard. Was the governor, Jay Nixon, was he pressured by the Obama administration? Nixon is a Democrat. Was he pressured not to have the National Guard there? And the National Guard was there, but they protected government buildings, not private businesses, which, 24 buildings burned down? Is this what they wanted? Boy, sure looks like it. Who knows if this is what they actually wanted, but one thing's for sure, this was orchestrated. There were plenty of reports of people being bussed in, plenty of reports of orchestration around the country. Thank God the violence wasn't as bad around the country as it was in Ferguson, Missouri, but I think this is what they wanted. And why does the Obama administration want this to be about race when I don't think it is about race? It is not about race. But the Obama administration wants it to be about race. Otherwise, why would he send Al Sharpton to Ferguson? Thank you, Al Sharpton. Thank you for destroying the economic base of an already poor minority community, helping to destroy the base. Thank you. And, listen, the undertone, even here where I live, there was, some small, protests, a few hundred people. But you know what the undertone is? Here's what the undertone is that I see. That somehow white people, whether police officers or just white people, are running around the country hunting down and shooting and killing young black men. That's what the undertone is. That we have a problem with white people hunting down black men and killing them in the street, and that is outrageous and preposterous and not supported by facts. You know how many white people kill black people? According to the FBI, 7.6%. You know how many black people kill white people? About 14%. Former Mayor Rudolph Giuliani on Meet the Press was arguing with somebody, saying something to the effect of, why we're in your communities? Because you're killing each other. 93% of blacks are killed by other blacks. He was citing FBI statistics. He's the former mayor of New York City. Of course, they called him some sort of white supremacist. But a three-time mayor of New York City, a white supremacist? Please, come on, stop. I used to live there. Giuliani, not a white supremacist. Not. That's outrageous. The most recent statistics from the FBI, about 90% of blacks in 2013 are killed by other blacks. Now, consequently, white people also, in general, about 83% of whites are killed by other white people. 7.6% of blacks killed by whites. And if you want to take a real look at the black-on-black crime statistics, look no further than Chicago, Illinois. This has been going on for years. Hundreds of young black men murdering each other with guns every year in Chicago. Since Michael Brown was killed in August, somewhere near 100 black men have been killed, murdered. And they're not being murdered by white people. Where's Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson? Where's Barack Obama, who used to live in Chicago? Where are those folks? This isn't a national tragedy where hundreds of young black men a year are being murdered by one another? Really? That's not a problem? And yet the Obama administration and other leaders of the black community want to propel this idea that white people are hunting down black people and murdering them. Yeah, 7.6% according to the FBI of blacks are killed by whites. Twice that number of whites are killed by blacks. Well, those are the stats, folks. Black folks in crime stats are way overrepresented. 13% of the population, 50% of the violent crimes? I mean, but this isn't about, so this really isn't about a white on black or even a black on white a problem. This isn't really about that. This is about a cover for a stinking, sinking economy. This is cover. That's what this is. Cover for a very, very bad economy. Sure, the GDP number recently came out. It was revised upward to 3.9%. I called my friend John Williams at shadowstats.com. I said, John, is this a real number? No. He tells me, no, it's kind of a bogus, ginned up, gimmicked up number. No, we're not growing at 3.9%. Nowhere near it. Of course, we got some other news out this past week. The PMI numbers, Purchasing Managers Index, plunged. Unemployment spiked. Consumer confidence plunged. Economy is not recovering, at least not on Main Street, and certainly not in African American communities. You want more proof the economy is not looking good? That some people think it's going down, it's going to tank? Well, look no further than Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. He just came out and said that Democrats made a mistake in voting for Obamacare. He was talking about how 85% of people liked their health care. It wasn't really the top issue. The economy. We should have focused on the economy. We shouldn't have voted for Obamacare. It wasn't the right time, I'm paraphrasing, the right time to introduce that legislation, even though he voted for it. He came out and said, quote, "We blew it," end quote. Should have concentrated on the economy. You think he thinks the economy's doing great? Remember I told you I predicted right after the midterm elections. What did I say? I predicted that. You watch Democrats, they threw him under the bus. Not really, but quote, unquote, threw him under the bus in the last election, ran against him. I've stood up to, Mitch McConnell's, opponent who got blown out. I will stand up to President Obama. Really? You'll stand up to the leader of your party? I said, you watch, they threw him under the bus. People ran away from Barack Obama in the last election. You wait until 2016. Oh, they're going to throw him down the stairs, under the bus, back over him. They're going to run against him. And let me tell you, between now and 2016, they're going to vote against him. They're going to want to fix a lot of these provisions in Obamacare that make you have only a 29-hour work week and the employer mandate. Wait till that kicks in. Wait till that little job killer, and it is a job killer, wait till that kicks in 2015. Republicans are going to want to stop that. They're going to want to change that. What do you bet Chuck Schumer and the other 9 Democrats that are up for re-election, they're going to vote with the Republicans? They're going to vote with the Republicans. And if Obama vetoes the legislation because now he doesn't have Harry Reid there to block, hundreds of bills and then blame it on the do-nothing and the obstructionist Republicans, now he's going to be the president of no. The Republicans were and I'm not a Republican, the Republicans were painted as the party of no, and yet Harry Reid blocked 350 bills, something like that, on his desk. Well, now they're going to go right through the Senate under Mitch McConnell. They're going to go right onto Obama's desk. And when he vetoes them, my bet is Obama's going to have some of his vetoes overridden with the help of Democrats in both houses. That's what my bet is. And guess who's up for re-election in 2016? Yep, Chuck Schumer up for re-election. This ain't working. And the Democrats know it's not working. And the Democrats know, as I said before, this is a sinking, stinking economy. Speaking of unemployment, if you look in the black community, youth unemployment near 25%. In the black community. You wonder why people are out there, burning down buildings and looting and things like 25%. 1 in 4 black youths unemployed. That doesn't excuse them looting and robbing and doing what they're doing. But that's what this whole race thing is about how bad Main Street, particularly minority Main Street, is doing. You also have blacks, in general, with about twice the unemployment rate as white people. And when I asked John Williams about the sub 6% unemployment rate that the Obama administration, look, it's under 6%. Yeah, when you stop counting enough people. Look how great the economy's doing, the Obama administration says, in effect. And John Williams at shadowstats.com says, if you computed the unemployment rate the way it was done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 94 and earlier, you'd get a 23% unemployed rate. And if the general population is unemployed at 23% in reality, what do you think the general black population is unemployed at? A lot higher than that, probably. And listen, giving somebody $1 or $2 an hour raise at a minimum wage job, and a job that now for most people is only 29 hours, where you can't get overtime or double time. If you want to make more money, you can do it by getting another 29-hour-a-week job where you can't make overtime or double time. That ain't going to fix the economy. That ain't getting it. And that's what the Democrats want. We're going to give you an extra $1 an hour on the minimum wage. That's going to fix the economy? And if the economy really was that good, and don't you think Chuck Schumer knows what I know? Yeah, he does. He's got a staff of people that tell him what's going on. If the economy was really that good, you think we'd have 47 million people on food stamps? That's record territory. You think we'd have 13 million people on disability? You think we'd have nearly 93 million people out of the workforce? Yeah, right, the economy's great. About 1 in 5 are getting food stamps or on disability, or both. About 1 in 5. Really? Great economy. Schumer knows the economy is bad, the real economy. The economy, that us voters live in. Not the fantasy world of Wall Street or the fantasy world of Washington. No, the real economy is sucking. And that's what Ferguson is really all about. And that's what the orchestration of these protests is really all about. It's cover for an economy that is bad and is not going to get better. Well, here's another big story. I mean, this is a big one. I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but, I've been talking about this for I don't know how long. U.S., have in Iran extend the deadline for a nuclear deal. The new U.S. wants to curtail the U.S., U.K., France, Germany, Russia, China. They're all trying to work on a deal where they're going to curtail Iran's nuclear program. As I've told you repeatedly, the Iranians, all the way to the top, have said repeatedly they are not going to curtail their program. They want to enrich uranium, and they want to have a nuclear program. They say it's for the peaceful production of energy, but a lot of countries in the West and countries in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia and other Sunni countries, they don't buy it. They're afraid of Iran developing nuclear weapons. And, there's some big questions that have to be answered. I mean, our ally, Saudi Arabia, that backs the petrodollar, if they come up with a deal that allows Iran to ultimately get a nuclear weapon, what's that going to do? How are they going to feel about that? Saudi Arabia is Sunni. Most of the Arab world is Sunni. Iran is Shia. That's the Hatfields and McCoys. They are diametrically opposed to one another. They hate each other. How long will Saudi Arabia wait? How long will the rest of the Arab nations wait? Next question, this is a big one. How long will Israel wait? The Ayatollah was out tweeting out how his plan to get rid of Israel. I can't make it up. He did. How long is Israel going to wait? Benjamin Netanyahu has been threatening that there's a red line, and I think his red line is going to mean something. But how long is Israel, how long Saudi Arabia, how long other Arab nations, Sunni Muslim Arab nations, or how long are they going to wait? I think we're going to find out in 2015. Finally, there's news about gold. And there's news about gold in countries wanting to acquire gold and repatriate gold. We've talked on and on about, Russia and China and India and these countries all wanting to buy gold and are buying gold like crazy by the tons and tons. Now we hear that the Dutch just got 122 tons of their gold repatriated from the Fed. And we're talking about from the Federal Reserve. 122 tons. Boy, Germany, they must feel like, what? You got what? I mean, the Fed has 1,500 tons of our gold about, and they promised us 300 tons of gold over the next 7 years, and we got back 5 tons. And the Dutch get 122 tons back right now? Boom! Supposedly? Reportedly? And then you have the leading candidate in the upcoming French election saying, hey, we should repatriate French gold. They took it out of the country before World War II. They didn't want the Germans getting it. They moved it to America and the Fed. And now the leading French candidate is saying, hey, we want our gold back. We should get our gold back. It is the patriotic thing to do, to bring our gold back to France. And of course, nobody's going to blow into France. They're a nuclear-armed country now. The leading French candidate, who's going to probably knock Hollande, the current president, the socialist president, the economy in France is terrible. He's going to knock him right out of the box, but he is the one saying, we should get our gold back. That's going to be awful hard for the French to say, oh, no, we don't want our gold back. So France is like this number 2 or 3 holder of gold, not counting the IMF. I mean, it's something like 2,400 tons they supposedly have in France and in other places like the Fed. They're going to want their gold back too. The Swiss voting on a gold referendum. They want to back their currency with 20% gold and repatriate their gold. Why are countries doing this? Why do countries want this barbaric yellow metal relic? Why do they want that back? Why would they want something that wasn't paper, that had no counterparty risk, that had a 5,000-year history of money? What do they know? What do they see coming down the pipe that all these countries either want to buy gold or repatriate gold? But they want physical gold in their vaults, in their hands. They want it. You think it's because they trust other central banks and the paper of other central banks? What does that say for, all paper assets? Like the dollar being the world's reserve currency, like treasury bonds, like any bonds, like the euro, like anything. Why would countries want to be clamoring and desiring and scrambling for gold? Rob Kirby's going to come on next week and talk about this and some other things and some shocking things that are going on behind the scenes about the real price of gold. And let me tell you, it's a lot higher than $1,200 an ounce if you'd like to buy it overseas and by the ton. A lot higher than that. Weird things, unusual things are going on, and it's signaling a big change coming. And for the unprepared, it's not going to be good. And I got to tell you, Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary, father of Reaganomics, said this, and it's really stuck with me. He said, the debt's going up. The gold price should be going up. And now we're seeing banks are paying fines for manipulating gold prices over in Europe and in the UK, and I'm sure here in the U.S. And it's pretty obvious. There's been lots of analysis, and they're paying fines too because they were manipulating the price of gold and metals, and they've had hearings about all the commodities being manipulated. Then Paul Craig Roberts said, the debt's going up. The price of gold should be going up. I mean, the Bank of International Settlements came out and said, in 2008, we had about $70 trillion in global debt, and now it's grown to $100 trillion. They said this, I think, back in January of this year. The global debt is now, 40% higher? What do these countries see where they're out scrambling and opining and demanding their gold back, or demanding or wanting to buy gold by as many tons as they can get their hands on? What do they see? It's not going to be good for paper assets, I'll tell you that. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and donations. And as I always close the show with, fear not.